We all need, 100% need to be learning and growing all the time. Once we stop, it will put us into that negative space of our mind where all of the learning centers of the brain start shutting down.
Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Leslie Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Leslie as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions.
Welcome back to Women We Should Know, the podcast where we consistently bring you the voices, the initiatives, the inspiration of women who are coloring outside of the lines, who are challenging the status quo by not getting inside of boxes created by others, and most importantly, who are carving a path for other women to be able to follow, but to not have to adhere to. That's the tricky part. And it is always my joy to speak with these women and have the opportunity to bring this to you. Today, we are speaking with Linda LoRe, who is the CEO and co-founder of Enjoy Global. In her 25-plus year career as a CEO, she is recognized as a leading authority in developmental brand strategy of our time. Her extensive experience includes building consumer companies from the ground up, revitalizing storied brands, and breathing new life into consumer favorites, including Avon Products, Procter & Gamble, May Corporation, which is Macy's, Giorgio of Beverly Hills, Oscar de la Renta, Fredericks of Hollywood. You've probably heard of a few of those. She is a highly sought-after coach and mentor for senior executives and consultants with senior management in strategic development and crisis management. She is an expert on corporate culture and master seminar facilitator, specializing in executive leadership, especially for female leaders in the C-suite. She's our kind of woman. Linda is the current president-elect of the trusteeship of the International Women's Forum, vice chair of the Exceptional Women Awardees, member of C200, member of Women's Leadership Board, and member of Women's Presidents Organization. She holds a Presidential Key Executive Master's degree of Business from Pepperdine University. Linda has received numerous awards, including the 2018 Woman of Courage Award. I like that one a lot. I like the sound of that. The 2012 George Award from Pepperdine University, 2009 Visionary Award for Youth Mentoring, 2003 Woman of Accomplishment for Benai Zion, and the 2002 NAWBO Women's Hall of Fame Award. There are many more. I could go on and on. This woman is recognized, she is accomplished, she is respected, and she is admired. So without further ado, let's welcome Linda to the podcast. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Leslie. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you so much for such a warm welcome.
Oh, well, thank you for coming. I am just excited to have you here. I have a fun little tradition at the beginning of every episode. I like to ask my guests, what is not in your bio that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, that's a great question. Well, I have a couple of juicy little things. I'm the oldest of 11 children, and 8 of them are from the same 2 parents. And family gatherings are pretty special and spectacular.
Mhm.
I kind of did my life backwards. In other words, I did my career before I got my MBA. Then I got married after I was a CEO and had children very late in life. So currently I have a 14-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son who is in his first year of college.
Well, it sounds to me like you didn't do it backwards. Like maybe you just did it your way.
You know, I'm one of those women that kind of walk the road less traveled, let's call it.
Mhm. Well, then you are our kind of woman.
Thank you.
I know there are lots of things that you are doing now that are really important and really impacting broadly. But I'd like to touch on just a few of the things that you've already accomplished, just to give our listeners not only a sense of who you are and where you came from, but an inspiration to remember that they can reach for the stars as well.
That's a lovely sentiment, too.
I would love to hear the story about when you were managing sports at a very young age.
I love that. Okay, so here's the deal. Being the oldest of that many children and growing up in the baby boom years, it was always about picking teams and street ball and stuff like that. My brothers were I had four brothers at that time, and three sisters, and two of my sisters and all four brothers were really athletic. And I realized that I was not quite as athletic, and I did not love being the last one chosen to be on sides of a team. So I decided that, yeah, I'm just going to manage the whole process instead. So I just took it upon myself to decide that I was going to be the team manager instead of one of the players. So I felt like that was an important job. And I think that was that started like when I was around 7 or 8 years old. And it kind of dovetails into a couple of things I did at that age, because when you're around that many children, if you just blend in, and I was never one of those blend in types. I was one of those kind of kids that wanted to make a difference. And I knew at a young age that I wanted to be admired, but not just to be admired. I wanted to do something. I wanted to make a difference. And I knew that at a very young age.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And congratulations. It's important not only to know those things at an early age, but to give ourselves permission to follow those knowings.
Yeah, I often say that I popped out of the womb going, hey, let's go, and I can say that I got that from my parents, who were very young when I was born. My dad was just turned 20 and my mom had just turned 18. And I don't know that they knew at that time that they were going to have so many children, but they were always pushing all of us to do the best and be the best that we could possibly be. And, that was de rigueur in my family. It was, you do the best you can do or don't do it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, evidently it stuck. It took. Because you were the youngest CEO ever in 1990. Is that
youngest
correct?
Female. The youngest
female CEO. Of course, I left out the word female. We had CEOs before 1990.
Right. And the youngest female CEO in a Fortune 500 company. So realistically, it was not that that there hadn't been female CEOs. There were a few, not a lot. But in a Fortune 500 company, I ran the Georgia Beverly Hills division of Avon products. And Avon was a very female-friendly company. And when Jim Preston named me the CEO, I think there were a lot of people who were pretty astonished that such a young woman would have to take over that position. And I realized what a responsibility that was, particularly to the women who were going to follow or who were alongside me. Because in the beauty industry during that time, there was only one other female CEO, Robin Burns. And she and I were contemporaries and friends. And that was it. But I was younger than her. And so it was really quite it was not only an honor, it was a real responsibility.
Of course. Of course. Well, with honor comes responsibility, doesn't it?
Yes, it
Regardless
does.
of where we are in life or what we're doing.
I agree with you.
And I understand one of the great secrets to your success then, after you left Giorgio, and even until this day, is you live by the standard that someone doesn't have to lose in order for someone to win.
That's a key foundation of my values is win-win or win-win-win. I often talk to my organizations, which I really was in a position of servant leadership, that really and truly, if your customer loses and you win, you lose. If your supplier loses and you win, you lose. If your employee loses and you win, you lose. So I've always approached the negotiating table or the strategic planning table, etc., with how can we lift everyone with the decisions that we're making. And that is a core value of mine.
And it is a core value of successful people. That's not to say there haven't been some ugly people who have been successful, but the legends.
The legends and the ones that are sustainable. I think,
Yes.
the sustainability of the true honor that people have to lead, because I do believe it's an honor to lead.
Yes.
Also, as we said, it's a responsibility. And, I've watched people who have struggled with integrity or struggled with making the right decision. And I just know for me, 100% of the time that you choose to step out of integrity is 100% of the time that you are going to eventually lose.
Yes. You are going to be wrong 100% of those occasions.
100%, absolutely.
Well, now moving forward a little closer to today, I'm going to read this because then you can explain to us what it means.
Okay.
That you are using online and mobile game theory. See, once you start talking about game theory and that, I'm lost. Linda's company, Enjoy Global, is a social enterprise focusing on the verticals of corporate culture, leadership, and customer success through customized programs and challenges designed to connect employees and individuals to their goals and objectives. This sounds really amazing, and I get a sense that this is wonderful. Please help me understand what it is.
Okay, so I'm going to explain that, but I also want to say that during the pandemic, something happened that was quite magical. To use this same platform to reach out to mentors, coaches, trainers, authors, speakers, because what it is a platform that engages people through gamification. Gamification just means that you have a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of competition.
Okay.
And it's 100% of the time you are leveling yourself up. But we use 4 key elements to really make sure that things progress and people grow with using this platform. So the first one is people need to feel valued. They need to feel like they are creating value, they are appreciated for their value, etc. We all need that. We all also need to feel like we're contributing. And in the corporate space, what we found is that by creating an atmosphere of inclusion and people being able to work together, high-fiving each other, calling each other out for good things that they've
Mhm.
done.
Mhm.
That created not only connection, but it allowed everyone to contribute to the success of each other. And then we also know that connection with whatever the vision or mission is, not only your own personal vision or mission, but the company you work for. You
Mhm.
need to be able to identify with that. You need to be able to embrace that.
Yes.
Then finally, we all need 100% need to be learning and growing all the time.
Yes.
Once we stop, it will put us into that negative space of our mind where all of the learning centers of the brain start shutting down.
Mhm.
So we took my business partner, used to work for a video game company. And what he did is he took the 7 concepts of gamification,
Mhm.
which is what gets those kids playing over and over, and some of us playing over and over those video games. And what were those sticky elements that could be connected to learning and growing and furthering people in the corporate space? Because I came from a place where I said, you know, in my next career, I want to be able to create a really healthy environment. And by healthy, I don't just mean physical health.
Right.
I mean, I wanted to create, because during all my years as a CEO, I watched every time the organization was connected
Mhm.
to the mission and the goals of the organization. If people felt empowered to contribute and to really call each other out for their awesome contributions,
Mhm.
and we're encouraged to do that. Not every single, the KPI is a key performance indicator. Every single KPI went through the roof. And what the data shows, and I don't want to be a data geek here, but
Oh, I love data.
what the data shows, and you can see this in several different studies, but what the data shows is that when you're operating from the level where there's an organization of trust,
Mhm.
an organization of positive environment where people
Mhm.
feel connected, that all of the indicators open up. And I'm going to give you a couple of them. When the brain is at positive versus neutral or negative, everything changes.
Mhm.
The individual has 180% more energy.
180%
80%
more energy. That's, I
So
didn't want to just breeze by
read
that.
by that. Okay, so
That's
think about that.
substantial.
Yeah, think about that, not just in the work environment, but think about that as for yourself.
In life.
In life, when you're operating from a basis where you are grateful that the day is here, for the little small wins that you might have, instead of just looking out over the horizon at the goal, and you can celebrate along the way. Each of those things rise up the ability for energetic, and the other thing, this one's going to blow you away, 300% more creativity. Talk about innovation in an organization
Of
when
course,
people
of
are
course.
operating from a positive place.
Mhm.
The other
Mhm.
things, 40% fewer errors, 32% more productivity, 37% higher sales. Who wouldn't want that?
Who
in their
wouldn't want that? And especially the errors. That's the one that jumps out at me, because errors can all fit in one bucket, or we can look at them and know that some of those errors are tiny and some are intensely costly.
Oh, absolutely. And what happens if people are paying attention, they feel ownership, they're connected, what
Mhm.
happens? They're going to be more careful, because they're going to, especially in the business
They
place,
care. They're
they
not just
care.
doing a function. They
Right,
have an emotional connection to what
right.
they're doing.
And I often tell when I'm doing some kinds of group organization,
Mhm.
we often talk about, the connection to the organization,
Mm.
and, how people don't start a job wanting to fail.
No,
You don't. You start a
nobody does.
job, everybody's like, ooh, wow.
Mhm.
So how do you get leadership? How do you get people to do the very best they can? And it's 100% of the time through people skills. And that's really where we focus our attention. I want to give you one more thing that I call the keys to success. And this has been really a very, very important thing, because I have to remind myself of this. I don't wake up every morning going, hey, whoopee. but you have to remind yourself of this. We will achieve 25% of our success based on our skills, the skills that we've learned, the intellect that we have, and building upon that. 25% of our success is on that. But the other 75% of our success is on three things. And these three things are not always easy to control, but if we can keep them foremost in our mind, it will make for a very, very happier, much happier experience and a much happier life.
Sure.
First one is how we show up. What's our attitude? What is our attitude? Am I optimistic? Is the glass half empty? Is the glass half full? What is my attitude? The second one is relationships, the network that we have. I have not ever seen anyone successful that does it alone.
No.
It is all about reaching out and touching someone, creating relationships. That's where my whole win-win base level of part of my own core values is that it's all about the people around you. There is no I in team. And I know that's cliche, but it's true.
It's still true, cliche or not.
Right. And so those relationships are critical.
Yes.
And then the third element is, how do we handle stress? And Lord knows we all have stress. Do we handle stress as a threat, or do we handle stress as a challenge? When we handle stress as a threat, we become blaming, we become passive aggressive, we look for someone to throw the monkey on their back. We really shut down, and it also impacts our health and our well-being. So when we take stress in and it weighs us down, and we don't have a mechanism by which to switch that from the blame and the victim and all of those kinds of things, and we turn that stress into a challenge, which means you have to create an open mind for, let me look for solutions.
Right.
Let me work with people. Let me reach out and be vulnerable. Those are the kinds of things. So that's kind of my, I don't know how we got off on this, but.
Well, I don't either, but it was brilliant. I am so pleased that you went through that. And I really appreciate your attention to, your expanded attention to the need for relationships and the way people interact, because as a former mentor used to say over and over, culture will explode your company up or implode your company in.
Right. Well, what's the Peter Drucker quote? Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
That's it. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, that is amazing that you built this company that is helping other companies to understand that. And I also know that you have a particular passion for women. How are you implementing all this to help women, whether they are working for another company or woman-founded, women-owned, women-run businesses? How are you taking that out and helping women use it to uplift themselves?
Well, first of all, I don't know of a time that I said no to a woman who ever asked for any kind of just, hey, can I ask you a question? Or, hey, can you help me with this? It's just not in my DNA. Let's put it that way. I'm very, very close. I have had some amazing women mentors and amazing women, and I had some amazing men mentors too. And they really were all about, lift yourself up and bring somebody with you.
Mhm.
And, that started at a very young age with my sisters.
Mhm.
But I think, I'm in an organization, EWA, the Exceptional Women Awardees, and that's a mentoring program for C-suite and women who aspire to the C-suite. I'm part of the International Women's Forum, and that's a sisterhood where you expand across each other and help each other out. And it's a friendship group. So that's really wonderful. I'm part of Women Presidents Organization. These are women who are part of chapters that get together to help each other with business.
Mhm.
And then I'm part of C200, which are women who have played in the higher levels of Fortune 1000 to Fortune. We have women that are part of Fortune 10 companies
Mhm.
there, and that's a collaboration. So it's always been something that I seek out,
Mhm.
is to surround myself by women that need and women that provide. And I want to give back. It's I've been so fortunate in my life that I've had great breaks. I've worked hard, but I've always had someone by my side.
Mhm. What are, let's say, the top 3 areas you encourage women to focus on to expand their potential from the inside out?
That's a very good question. Very, very good question. So it's, let's see, the top 3. Well, the first one is be true to yourself.
Mhm.
And in order to be true to yourself, you have to do that journey. You have
Mhm.
to know yourself.
Yes.
And what comes from knowing yourself is then to surround yourself in being your authentic self. So authenticity. So know yourself, be authentic, allow yourself to be vulnerable
Mhm.
without being a doormat. I think that's really important. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes women think that they just have to keep their mouths shut. And I've done it. I've done it. So I know
Mhm.
you can speak up and be an advocate for yourself without being whiny or, uh, can I say bitchy, or,
Oh, you can say whatever you want here.
without being hostile, or, somebody doesn't have to lose in order for you to win.
Mhm.
And when you can find that place where you can have harmony,
Mhm.
not only within yourself, but across the aisle with each other,
Mhm.
that creates an incredible opportunity for growth, for development, and you. I can listen very, very carefully to what's not said and learn so much from that.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just have to do that. And
It's
so
a skill. It's an important skill.
you are so right. You are so right. Very important skill, and one that I don't think I will ever stop learning,
No.
because, haven't you, I mean, you walk away and you kind of replay what just happened in your interaction. You go, why did I say that? Why didn't I say this?
Right. Right.
And instead of beating yourself up about it and stressing over it,
Mhm.
learn from it and grow from it,
Mhm.
because we all make mistakes. And this is the lesson I continue to have to teach myself.
Oh, not me. I've got it down pat.
Yeah. And the other one is don't take everything so personally.
Oh,
Oh my gosh,
yes.
that's my biggest lesson. Oof,
Mhm.
that mistake I've made so many times, when it wasn't really, it's not always about us, right?
Mhm. Mhm. But I learned that when I take it personally and there was no value in it, it's because there's some little piece I hadn't looked at inside.
Yeah. That's where you learn, always replay, and, I'll get off
Always
that.
replay.
Always replay and say, what could I have done better?
Yes.
What did I need to do? What should
Yes,
I have done? Whatever, because that's how we grow.
it is. It
That's how
is.
we grow.
Women are notorious, in my experience and observation, for holding themselves accountable to some illusioned perfection, because perfection doesn't exist. If there was perfection, it would eradicate expansion. How do you see a lot of this? And if you also see it, how do you help women come to terms with it so they can be more kind to themselves?
This is probably the key thing in my years that I have had to work on myself with.
Yes.
And you are so right. There are two things that I've seen that women do notoriously that our male counterparts don't do as notoriously. Doesn't mean that some of them don't do this, but I was such a perfectionist that I became a complete workaholic. And it did not do me any favors.
No.
And so when I see a woman that when I notice it in somebody and they're open to discussing it, it is something that you have to be able to let things go. And that's hard to do. And especially hard to do, I think, gender specifically for us. That's a hard one. Taking things personally and being a perfectionist, they kind of go hand in hand.
They do. They do.
And that's a really big lesson to learn.
It is. And I believe it's hardwired in women somehow, because I've read several psychological studies that men, if they believe they have 60% or even close to 60% of the skills needed for a particular position, they'll go in there and they have every confidence. They will represent themselves as being the only person, the only choice for the position. Whereas women psychologically have to get close to that 80 percentile mark of knowing 80% before they will even represent themselves as viable, let alone the only person for the job.
You're so right. And can I tell you a little story?
Oh, I wish you would. I love stories.
So when I was the senior vice president at Georgia Beverly Hills, and Jim Preston was the chairman of the board of Avon, and he was going to name the successor to Michael Gould, who's one of my really dearest mentors. And I was being considered for the job. I didn't ask for the job because I didn't think that they would ever pick me because I didn't have any of the experience.
Right.
And I got a call from the assistant to Jim Preston who said, "Are you going to make an appointment for an interview?" And I panicked. And in myself, I said, "Oh my God, I didn't even ask for the job. Of course I want that job. But can I do that job? Am I qualified for that job? Oh my goodness." But what came out of my mouth was, "Of course, I'm sorry, I've been so busy. We've been getting ready for this lunch. I haven't had a chance to call. There's a 3-hour time difference." And I made a whole bunch of excuses and made an appointment.
Right.
Got on a plane, flew to New York, and had the interview. And during the interview, he said to me, "What really motivates you when you make decisions and while you're working?" And there was a divine inspiration that happened. And I looked at him and I said, results motivate me. And that's true. I didn't prepare for that answer. He loved that answer. And I think that answer.
I bet he did love that answer.
Loved that answer. But the little girl self of me that was sitting outside my body next to me was going, "Don't blow it. Don't blow it. Don't do this, say that." And on the whole flight over, saying to myself, "You don't have any experience. You're da, 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 da." I had tons of experience of leadership, but I had never been a CEO before. And then he asked me, he said, "What makes you think that you can do this job?" And I said, "Well, I, of course, would need help from all the people around me, but I knew this about myself, that I had the passion about the brand. I knew the brand probably better than anyone at that point in time. I was a senior VP of marketing at that time. And I had the passion for the people and for winning. And by winning, I don't mean somebody losing. I just mean being the very best that you could possibly be. So the story is this: the scared little girl who was sitting beside me got to sit beside me while the woman showed up.
That is fabulous. That is fabulous. We can't
I got
leave
the
them
job.
behind because they're a part of us, but giving them the chair beside us, that's a wonderful tactic.
Yeah. I told her, sit there and be quiet.
Good for you. And good for you, and good for whoever that was that called you and said, haven't you said an interview yet? Because that's so typical to what we're discussing.
Right.
You
And that was
hadn't been a CEO yet, so
Right.
you assumed you might not have the skills, but how are you going to get the skills unless you are a CEO?
Right. And it was a woman, and she liked me. And she did that out of her own, because
Absolutely.
she didn't see me on the schedule. And she said, I better give her a call and find out what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
years later, I found out that was, that had I not called, I probably never would have been even considered. I mean, had I not set that appointment, had she not called me.
Right.
I was lucky. I was really lucky.
And maybe well cared for, because maybe she was that woman who was saying, let me see who I can look out for now on a regular basis. And that day
She was
that
my
day
friend.
you won the brass ring.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly right.
What is in front of you? You are so accomplished and talented and skilled and lovely. What is in front of you that is still that little shiny diamond that you haven't grasped yet, that moves in front of your line of sight from time to time to remind you it's still there?
That's a very good question. I thought, my daughter is going to be in high school next year. So that is, that's a source of, and anyone who has a 14-year-old child, especially a girl, all of us women know what we were like. And there's a lot there that I want to give to her, but there's a passion for me to reach out in an even broader way to not just women, but to humanity, to level ourselves up and to be a part of this light that operates from a base of love versus a base of fear. It's a really important thing to me. I don't know if there's a book there. I don't know if there's an organization there, but that little flash that keeps coming through me says, you know what it feels like to be cared for. Right. You know what it feels like to be beside, and you know what it feels like to care for someone. How can you take all those things and then put them into this package that inspires and motivates and holds accountable each other so that we can grow in this? And it's sad that in the English language, the only word that I can use for this really is love. But what I mean is there's two base emotions, love and fear. And when you operate out of fear, that's when win-lose happens. Right. That's when, fear comes up and hate happens, and, competition is not friendly, and all those kinds of things happen out of fear. And what happens out of love is we all lift each other up. This is a short life we have. And all you have to do is look at your children growing up to know how fast it goes. Or remember where you were 25, 30 years ago and say, oh my gosh, that happened in a blink of an eye. The shiny object is what more can I do to help lift this into the base of love?
That is beautiful. And never in my lifetime, and I've been around the sun a few times, never in my lifetime have I seen the world more in need.
Yeah, I agree with you.
More
And I
in
think
need.
that we, and this is a message to any woman who is listening right now, and I hope you have lots of them, and any man who is listening right now. We get bombarded with all of the negative news.
Mhm,
We get bombarded with what's wrong.
mhm.
We need to start putting out there what's right. We need to start acknowledging and being grateful for and loving each other for the beauty that's inside each one of us, because it's in every single one of us. And we are a reflection of that soul that creates humanity. And if we all lift together, we'll all lift each other up.
Mhm.
And right now, there's just so much negativity that gets put out into the media or into social media or what have you, that we need to look for the pearls of gold, the wisdom and the light, so
Mhm.
that we can all lift each other up.
That's absolutely beautiful, Linda. And I applaud you. And not only that, please keep in touch. I want to know what you're doing because I want to jump in wherever I can. What is most appalling to me is not the negativity, but the relish the individuals are expressing in sharing that negativity. So to be able to just put out something glorious and beautiful, that's lovely. And for all of you who are listening, of course, I'm going to do what I always do for you. I'm going to put Linda's contact information, all of her book links and her event links, and absolutely anything she'll give me permission to publish about her, I'm going to publish it over there in the program notes. And I encourage you to go like this episode, of course, subscribe to the podcast, but also, who do you know? What woman out there do you know who will benefit from this message today? What woman out there who you know is striving for that C-suite and she just keeps missing that step by an inch and might be benefited by some coaching or some mentoring? Share this episode with her. Give her a gift. She'll use it or she won't. But you could be in great service to that future CEO. Thank you so much for being with us today, Linda.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and for allowing me to just share from my heart. I really appreciate it.
You are more than welcome. As you go through the day, I know you got some beautiful nuggets here today to stick in your pocket and carry forward with you. Don't forget to take them out, roll them around in your hand. Take that in just a little bit more. And as you do go through your day, please remember, you are stronger and wiser than you know.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you received inspiration for expanding your own social innovation and influence. Help us inspire others by sharing this episode and leaving your comments over at lesliemichaels.com/podcast. For more tips, insights, and support in creating a fully audacious, professional, and personal lifestyle you love, visit our Women We Should Know community on Facebook.